Okay, hi again. This is the second part of the history of life on Earth PowerPoint. Let me share screen. Okay, so we were last talking about the Cambrian explosion, okay, when many species of organisms appeared. All right, so now there's another concept that you need to be familiar with. It's on page 178, and it's known as missing links or transitional. There's lots of transitional fossils, or they sometimes refer to as intermediate forms. Okay, so based on fossil evidence, we have been able to see that life, different organisms gradually change, from one species into another. Okay, the concept of evolution. And other evidence that has been gleaned is that there are a lot of intermediate forms. So fossilized animals that are the links between more recent ones and older organisms. Okay, so these are known as transitional fossils. So there are a couple of examples. South Africa, we are very well known for lots of fossil finds that have been found in the Mauritius area, cradle of humankind. Okay, so these are fossil hominids. So they are early human-like organisms. Okay, and they are considered to be a transition between humans and apes. So we're not saying that humans evolved from apes. We're saying that there was a common ancestor, and on the one evolutionary line, it gave rise to the apes as we know them, and the chimps, etc. And on another evolutionary line, it gave rise to humans. All right, and there were early forms of humans like Australopithecus, or hominids, not humans, hominids, Australopithecus, and then you get the actual genus Homo. We are Homo sapiens, and there were other species of early humans, Homo, that were also present thousands of years ago. Okay, for example, in grade 12, we talk about Homo habilis and Homo neanderthalensis and Homo erectus. So they were early human-like hominids. All right, so they're always trying to find the link between different groups, and those are known as the transitional fossils or the missing links. Okay, another one you might have heard of is Archaeopteryx. Now, Archaeopteryx, a number of specimens, I think 12 fossil specimens have been found of this particular organism in Germany, formerly known as Bavaria, and they found different species and they're different sizes, and these extinct organisms are thought to be the transitional link or the intermediate form between dinosaurs and birds as we know them today. And the most recent fossil of Archaeopteryx is more closely related to modern birds than it is actually dinosaurs, so showing that progression. Okay, then my favorite one is Coelecanth, which is a really special ancient fish that is thought to be the link between fish as we know today and early amphibians. All right, so here's some photographs of what I mean by, when you talk about hominids. So this is Professor Lee Berger. He's an American scientist, but he actually lives and works in South Africa, and he found this Australopithecus fossil, which is an early hominid species, and it's Australopithecus sativa, and it was found in the cradle of humankind, and it's a very famous fossil. And then there's the newer one, which is Hominid, and you'll learn more about that in grade 12. So they are considered to be, we're trying to figure out where they fit in the evolution tree, in the human evolution tree. Okay, then there's Archaeopteryx. Now, as I said, about 12 fossils have been found, and this is one of the best preserved specimens. And this is what they think it looked like. So it got both reptilian and bird-like features. So it's thought to be a transitional fossil between birds and dinosaurs. So here, this is quite a nice picture. It's one of the ones that were discovered in Germany. Okay, it's considered to be 150 million years old. And on the left-hand side, you can see that the reptilian features is that it's got fingers with claws. It's also got bones which aren't reduced, smaller, or they're not fused. In birds, a lot of the bones are smaller, or they're missing, or they fuse together to make the bird light. and the breastbone. So that's the breastbone in the front here. Now, in a bird that flies, that breastbone is very big, so the muscles can attach on either side, and those muscles will help the wings move up and down. So it does not have, well, it's got a very small breastbone. There's no keel. There's no extension of the breastbone, which we find in birds that fly, which allows the wings, the muscles that attach to the keel allow the wings to move. It's also got teeth, proper teeth. Think of a crocodile or lizard, and they are in sockets in the jaw. And the girdle, the pelvic girdle, the hip area, it's more similar to dinosaurs, and it's got a long bony tail, just like a lizard. And if you think of birds, they don't have a bony tail, the feathers actually make the tail. And then the bird, or the avian-like features, the vertebrae, okay, I don't know too much about the vertebrae of the bird, they're flat-faced. They don't have lots of protrusions. They're called tubercles, etc. You can see impressions of feathers that are more like a bird. The little ribs, they're very tiny, very small to make the bird lighter for flight. They've got some fusion of lower leg bones, not many, so the bones are really light. Okay, bird bones are actually hollow. They fill with air sacs to make them light for flight. This one has got some fusion of the lower leg bones, and there's impressions of tail feathers. So those are the bird-like features. And you've even got a picture of that on page 100, and actually page 179. All right, not 90. Okay, so other intermediate species. Well, in South Africa, in the Karoo region, there are fossils. They are called cerapsids, and they are thought to be mammal-like reptiles. So they are the transitional forms between reptiles and mammals. Lots of fossils have been found here. They arose about 275 million years ago. The legs, think of a dog or a cat, the legs are below the body, that on the legs. Whereas you think of a crocodile, the legs are to the side. So that's a more reptilian, a more ancient feature. These guys walk on their legs. They are tetrapods. They walk on their legs. Okay. And they laid eggs, which is quite unusual. Think of mammals. And the early forms had scales, okay, which is also unusual for mammals. And the teeth. If you think of a crocodile's teeth, they're all the same. They're just sharp and hooked. They're all the same. They're homodonts. Whereas our teeth, we've got incisors and canines and molars and premolars, and they had the same. All right. And they died out about 146 million years ago in the Cretaceous. And this is what they think that they look like. So there's a transition between reptile and mammal. And then my favorite one, the coelacanth. So there are still two species alive today off the coast of South Africa, up until Indonesia, New Indian Ocean. They were thought to be extinct. And then the first live one was found in 1938 off the coast of East London. I'll tell you about that now. And lots of fossil species have been found around the world. And I just happened to find this one. There's an article about one that was discovered in Texas, showing that that region, Texas, was once an inland sea. Texas is our land. Okay, so they found fossil bone fragments, and it was a much smaller species of coelacanth. It's actually this one over here. Okay, so they look very odd. They are very primitive. They've got quite a few noticeable features. They've got these very large, fleshy, you can see there. It's not like a normal fin of a goldfish. You can think of fins, they've got these bony rays with little membranes in between. Okay, that's more like a goldfish. Whereas here, almost like becoming a limb. So there's this large, fleshy region, and they actually move like they're walking. So there's a video that you can look at, and they actually move like they're walking. Their limbs move alternate to one another, just as if they were walking. And they've got very odd scales. They're covered in slime. They've got a hinge. There's a hinge at the back of the head, so they can open their mouths wide. Very large prey. They hide in caves. They're quite nocturnal, so lots of them have been found in caves off Sodwana. You can actually go and dive to Sodwana, and go on different dives, but there are ones where you go further out. The more experienced divers can go to Sodwana and try and find these coelacanths. So they have been around for about 400 million years, and they've hardly changed. So they're actually known as living fossils. So they were thought to be extinct, and And then there's a living one was found in a a fisherman's catch by a curator of a museum in 1938. And she said, please come have it, and then it was studied and so on. So it's put in a museum in East London. So that was the first live one that they found. So they realized that it's not extinct, it's still alive. Well, there's only 2 species in the Indian Ocean that are still alive today. But there's many fossils of other species around the world. And so that it's known as a living fossil because it's hardly changed. It's so comfortable in its niche, there's hardly any mutations, and it's really very similar to what it was 400 million years ago. So it's known as a living fossil. All right. So here, okay, the fish that Town forgot. So it's related to something called lungfish, okay? And lungfish, there's a video that you can have a look at. You can click on the link on the original PowerPoint, not this video PowerPoint. Considered to be a link between lungfish and tetrapods. Lungfish are still alive today. You get the African lungfish, okay, West African lungfish, etc. And tetrapods were the early organisms that could move on to land and walk on 4 legs. All right, so they were thought to be extinct. These coelacanths. The species, the genus name is Lactimeria, and as I said, this live specimen was found in a fisherman's catch, 1938 by Marty Fortin Latimer. And this was a fisherman, and it's on the 23rd of December, and that's what they look like. And you can see here, it's been around since 360 million years. And there's all these other species that are extinct. Okay, so it almost looks like they're developing loads of things. Those are the organisms that will evolve and become speciated for new species on land. All right. So there she is. It's called Latimer, and they had all these commemorations, and we used to use them. Okay. So we still use them, but not often. And all these commemorative stamps there at them in 1938, a bit later, and there's the actual specimen, the museum specimen. All right, so now I actually went and looked on all these different organisms, and I found all these little video clips. But you have to go to the original PowerPoint and open the hyperlink there. It's actually quite interesting that all of these organisms, plants and animals, are living fossils because they've hardly changed, most of them, for about 400 million years. Okay, so Nautilus is still around today. There's a nice link showing you what it looks like and how it's used. It's a mollusk. And this is the ginkgo tree. And they grow quite a lot of them in Japan. So there's a video clip showing you the leaves. I actually used to think that the leaves were very, very small. And my one friend, another teacher, is actually growing one in the garden. And the leaves are actually quite big. I was quite surprised. I always thought they were really tiny. And then this little guy over here, that is a horseshoe crab. And they've also hardly changed in 400 million years. And the one video says, oh, this video, it says that this tail, even though they look really scary and ugly and harmful, that tail, they just use it to flip themselves over. If you ever find them on a beach, and they're more found in the Gulf of Mexico and the coast of America. Okay? But they use that tail to flip themselves over, and they're quite endangered because their blood is actually blue, so it's copper-based, not iron-based like ours, and they use it to detect bacteria, for making medicines and things. So you can go and have a look at that video. That's something I didn't know. And the lungfish, I also read up a bit more on this. So these are almost like a link between fish and early amphibians. So it's quite odd because they have a sac-like lung inside. Other fish, goldfish, and that they've got an air bladder that they use. They fill up with air to make them more buoyant and rise, or they squeeze out the air to make them sink. So these guys, they can actually breathe underwater. They've got gills, but they need to go up to the surface to breathe oxygen using their lungs. And then there's a whole story. There's a lovely video here where it shows them they make cocoons. And in the mud, in the rivers, or whatever, dry out in Africa, even South Africa. When the rivers dry out and it becomes mud, all the other fish die. And these guys dig into the ground, they burrow, and they secrete a mucus which hardens, and then it becomes like a cocoon. And then they can breathe with their lungs through that cocoon. And then when it rains again, out they pop and off they go. You can go and have a look at those videos over there. Then cockroaches. Cockroaches never die. That's what they say. They've been around for millions of years. You can go and watch these videos. these that I've always wondered about the fact that they can survive a nuclear explosion. So there's some videos over here that you can watch about that. And it's not entirely true, but you can go and watch. It's actually quite interesting. So those are all different living fossils. Okay, so they are organisms that have hardly changed over millions of years, hardly any mutations, and they are very similar to the ones that were around millions of years ago. All right, so now over time there was speciation events, so more species were produced, and then there are extinction events. So you can, just like this cliff over here, there are different rock layers, and that's what you look at. They look at the type of fossils that are found, how many fossils there are in these rock layers called strata. Okay, they're called sedimentary rocks. So strata are the layers of sedimentary rocks. So it was sand that was deposited, and then that sand hardens to form rock. The sediment, the sand, is laid down and gets compressed, and then it becomes a layer of sedimentary rock. So the younger layers, or some layers have more fossils than others. Depends. Sometimes fossils don't form. Maybe the environment wasn't correct. Fossils only form under certain conditions, which I'll explain in the next section. The younger layers, the ones near the top, those were laid down more recently. They would have very different fossils and more advanced organisms than the ones found further down. There might be lots of fossils, few fossils, no fossils. It depends on what type of organism it is, how much decomposition there was, what organisms are made of. Are they soft or are they hard? Because fossils generally form better if the organisms are hard and if there's very slow decomposition, like in a swampy area. So scientists, by looking at these strata in different regions of the world, have said that there have been 5 mass extinctions in the past. And you can see a picture of that on page 180, and here's another one. And at the end of this PowerPoint, there's about 4 videos where you can go look at what mass extinctions are all about. They're nice short clips. The number of families, you can see here that there were very few, 500, let's just look it up, it's about 550 million years ago. And then there was lots of speciation, then a mass extinction event, then another one, and then lots of speciation, and then another one, and then we are now in the Quaternion. So they're talking about these 6 extinctions caused by our actions on Earth. Okay, so you can go and have a look at those videos. The biggest mass extinction is the one that occurred about 248 million years ago. Okay, and that was at the end of the Permian, where 95% of oceanic organisms and 75% of land animals or land organisms, not just animals. And the dinosaurs, that's what we need to be familiar with, is that they died out about 65 million years ago. All right, so I'm not going to go through this. You can go through this information about what's caused mass extinction. Okay, so they've got names. The video links are actually at the end of the PowerPoint. Okay, and you can see here lava and asteroids and global warming and volcanism and asteroids and so on and so on. Okay, and glaciers melted and rising sea levels and so on. All right, so we are currently, they say we are in the current 6 extinctions. This is a little bit old, but in 1993 they said 50,000 species are becoming extinct per year. That's 3 species every hour in the world. All right, and that's something that we always need to be aware of. Habitat destruction, taking away land, building, increasing human population, all of those things are leading to the extinction of organisms that we actually rely on. All right, and there's a diagram, a nice little graph on page 181. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it properly, but it shows how the number of organisms and how their numbers are decreasing, and here's the human population and how it's increasing. Right. And you did a little bit of that in grade 9. You needed population studies. Okay, then just to end off the section, extinct animals, famous extinct animals. It's odd that extinct animals can be famous, sounds a little bit ironic. But I've just chosen the ones in Mauritius and Madagascar because they're near South Africa. So the most famous one is the dodo. It was a flightless bird, and the last one was killed in 1681 in Mauritius. It's a lovely video that you can watch. and they think it's, the sailors used to go there, and because these dodos, they're not scared of humans. They had no predators on the island, on Mauritius, and they just stood there. And then eventually the sailors would herd them onto their ships and eat them. I heard a story that sailors some pigs got onto the island from the sailors, and they eventually became wild, and they killed off the dodos. That's the story I've heard. Then the elephant bird, also a flightless bird, so it's related to the ostriches and the other ones we talked about earlier, the emus and the rheas. And there's some nice videos here about the elephant bird. And they don't think it was humans that caused it to go extinct. I thought it was, but if you don't watch these, because they were really big. I mean, they could really kick into the next century, I'm sure. And but David Attenborough, in one of these videos, talks about how there's so many eggshells all over Madagascar, that pieces of eggshell, and they think that Madagascar was one of the last inhabited islands. Humans only arrived there a couple of thousand years ago, and you can't kill the elephant bird, but you can certainly take the eggs. Okay, so you can watch those videos. And then the one video also talks about how lemurs, the giant lemurs, are extinct, and there's lots of species of lemurs that are currently nearing extinction in Madagascar. But there's some people, there's this one organization, the one video talks about how they're trying to regrow the forest, and they've planted something like 1 million saplings, trees, young trees that they've grown in nurseries to try and rejoin the little pockets of forest so that these lemurs don't go extinct. Because you can't try and just save the lemur, you've got to actually protect the environment that they live in as well. So just by watching those, I've actually learned quite a bit as well, and I think you should go and watch them too. Okay, then in South Africa, so around the world, lots of frogs are endangered. They're becoming extinct. They're getting lots of diseases. There's a parasitic fungus that grows on them. The critically endangered frog in South Africa, one of them is the Table Mountain ghost frog. Only found on Table Mountain in the streams on the eastern and the southern slopes. And it's quite see-through. You can see some of the organs inside. Okay, this is the genus, the species, and the Ephraimi rosei, the rose ghost frog, and they only live in usable streams. So there's a problem if you are encroaching on the habitat by building more houses and things. So it's quite strange that they only live in 7 or 8 kilometers squared on that mountain. And that's all. So there's huge efforts that are being taken to try and preserve these special little frogs, because they form a very important part of the ecosystem. So maybe you can go and look at that. All right, and these are the mass extinction video links. They're all nice and short. Some of them are animation, and you can go and have them explained it very nicely. All right, so that's my little story on the history of life on Earth, and my next one will be on fossils.